think I may have found the next Stellar Blade type of game. It's a new game coming from a Korean developer called Nexon that usually worked on massive multiplayer online role-playing games, and now they're looking to delve into some RPG style of gameplay a la Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne, and they're coming out with a game that has a similar aesthetic as Stellar Blade but transported into a Celtic mythological world. And this is their words, and you see some of the gameplay and the features and the physics. It carries a lot of similarities to what we're seeing with another Korean developer, Shift Up, that is developing Stellar Blade, which blew up in popularity because of its overall aesthetic beauty and its focus on creating things that attract the male gaze. And we're seeing something similar here with a game called Vindictus Defying Fate, and this is the game I'm talking about that is carrying on that tradition that has been established in Korea about creating some very appealing character profiles that we haven't seen before in the Western developer sphere for a long time. And I think this is a game that is being tested out in pre-alpha form. It's a long ways away from actually coming out, but them actually testing this out, getting a response from the fan base, is something that they're looking for right now. So this is why I want to highlight this game. It looks very interesting already. It kind of has that Final Fantasy mix with Elden Scrolls feel to it, and I think that is the thing that I'm looking forward to the most about this game, because the gameplay actually looks pretty good so far, and it looks interactive and dynamic enough where I'm interested to see this world that they're developing here. It seems like a beautified version of what we see from FromSoft that usually has that darker feel, but I think it has that good gameplay mechanics that we would expect from a type of FromSoft game, and I think that's the thing that I'm looking forward to the most with this. It looks very appealing, looks very dynamic and interesting. The attacking system, the style of play, it looks like something that is really being taken care of and looked at as a focused game that is being developed for game players in mind. And I think that's where I see that similarities between Stellar Blade. Yeah, it looks pretty, looks amazing, but has gameplay that is actually interesting, and I think that's the case here with Defying Fate. And the game is called Vindictus Defying Fate. It's focused on Celtic mythology. That's the description that they gave out themselves. So it's interesting to see that dynamic of a Korean company trying to take up a different culture and represent it in their own fashion. And I think that is the thing that we haven't seen in the developer space, where no one is allowed to look into other cultures and make something similar to a different culture, because that is reserved to that person and that culture itself. They have to start their own development company and represent their culture. No one else can actually peer into different cultures, and that's the philosophy of the social progressive in the Western developer sphere, where no one's allowed to make anything about any other cultures. But that is not the case with Korea and Japan. They are interested in other cultures, so they make games surrounded around that culture, and I like that, where they're delving into these different mythologies and expressing them in their own way, of course, because in Celtic mythology there's no girl wearing this very light dress with a shield. Of course, it's unrealistic, but that's the point. This is not supposed to be a realistic depiction of female warriors in Celtic mythology. This is a fantasy game with wolfman monsters you have to fight off, and that is the case with this game. I think that's the interesting part that is engaging. That's what's getting my interest, and I think this is really the next big game that is going to follow in that Stellar Blade format, where it is going to capture the interest of the masses, because we're getting a limited amount of this game in the market right now. That's why Stellar Blade is exploding, and I think any game that is appealing to the male gaze, that is unashamed about being attractive to the male gaze, is going to get that attention, because everything is about averting from the male gaze, taking away that attractiveness and trying to force people into loving something that is extremely ugly. And I think that is just not in video games. It's not in overall entertainment. It's in art, in overall architecture. Everything is about ugliness in modern architecture and art, and I think that is the case with video games now, where everyone's trying to push you towards an ugly aesthetic that we see in Starfield and other properties that are coming out. And I think that is what people want to avoid. People want to see beauty and fantasy, and I think you can have the ugliness there as well, but people definitely want to see the idealistic type of beauty that is sometimes impossible in reality, and sometimes unfortunately very possible in reality. reality. And I think that is where the insecurities build up for people that hate seeing pretty attractive characters in gaming, because they feel like that is possible, and now we're seeing it everywhere in gaming and fantasy, and they want to avoid it. But this game itself, I think it's doing everything right. It has the gameplay, it has the dynamics, it looks interesting. I like the brightness and fullness. It's kind of taking a different stance from all the usual From Software games that kind of have that dark and dreariness, which I like. It has that Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones vibe that is just engrossing. But I like this bright fantasy overall aesthetic here, and mixed in with the Stellar Blade beauty. It's an interesting blend. It's doing something unique, I think, in and of itself, and I think that is the crazy thing. Having something beautiful around ugly things is interesting and unique nowadays, and when in the past that was just a standard protocol, because most developers knew this was the winning ticket to actually attract gamers. But nowadays that thought process is gone, and now we're rarely getting these type of games. And it's funny that we have to wait for Korea, because Korea is the only developing space where people still want this, and there's a kind of a crowd dynamic, or at least the game player base refuses to buy anything other than this type of game. And I think that is the great quality of Korea itself. It seems like Korea is unaffected by the Western developer political sphere, where we have these talking points and progressive viewpoints that are instilled in every facet of entertainment, even when it leads to the ultimate detriment and failure of companies. But that is not the case with Korea. I looked at the overall CEO of the company. He's 100% Korean, with another American born Korean guy. He has full investment and control of his company, even though it's public. He has multiple investments in Hasbro, Bandai Namco, Microsoft. So he is a very wealthy guy that has investments in all these other companies, and they're under their control. He's basically a billionaire, and they're able to do what they want with their video games. So I think this game is very secure for where it is. They have just signed a distribution deal with Microsoft and Sony to distribute their games. So I think we're gonna be able to play their games pretty soon everywhere, and I think that is the great thing about this product, where it's gonna be distributed everywhere by a company that is majority owned and controlled by a Korean developer that has this aesthetic. And it is showing positive signs in the video game industry, where change is happening, and it's happening at a quick pace with developers that have their own vision and goal that can't be tampered with. And I think that is the thing that we're seeing with Defying Fate. It is actually in reality defying fate, and I think that is the impressive thing about this game. And I think we're gonna see a multitude of other things about this game that is gonna impress us. And I looked at some of the designs, the overall looks. It really is something that is fascinating to see what they're trying to do, what they're trying to build up in this world. And I'm wondering what's the storyline gonna be. They have all these eccentric clothing. I'm like, is this gonna be something that's mixed in with, I guess, time travel, or passing through different worlds in the gate or something like that? But they're doing something very intriguing with the overall design of these characters. I'm interested to see what they do and build up with it. But you tell me what you think about this game. Do you think this is the next Stellar Blade? I think so. It looks like Stellar Blade with a little bit of modern day K-pop dancing, and I'm fine with that. Maybe you're not fine with that, but I would like to see some K-pop dancing in a Souls-like game. You leave your thoughts on the situation. Tell me what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.